A strict code of honor. As an uber-alpha assassin, John Wick is one of the most violent action heroes in modern cinema. He routinely mows down enough enemies to make Rambo blush, yet despite his extremely violent ways, audiences love rooting for the guy. That is because he operates by a strict code of honor among allies and enemies alike. We first glimpse John's code in the first movie when he offers to let the main villain and his one man off the hook if they simply hand over the guy who killed his dog. It's only when the criminals refuse his offer that John goes all Punisher on the words. In the second movie, John is unwillingly dragged back into the action to honor a pledge he made to another crime boss years ago. In the first film, we see John calling in favors with the gold coins used as currency in the secret assassin world. These coins are the best example of the code that the assassins lived by. The coins don't have monetary value but instead are a token of acknowledgement for services rendered and a debt that will need to be repaid at some point in the future. His code of honor also determines who he lets live or die. If he respects a fellow assassin enough, even if they are trying to kill him, he might leave them with their injuries rather than finish the job as when he leaves Cassian with a knife in his aorta in John Wick Chapter 2. John steps by the Continental. As a man constantly on the run, there are not a lot of places where John Wick can feel safe and at home. One place that keeps popping up in the franchise as a safe haven for even the most desperate individuals is the Continental Hotel, run by John's old friend Winston. The details surrounding the hotel are wrapped in mystery, but what is clear is that the building is far more than a simple bed and a breakfast joint. The session world involves around these hotels, and Winston wields enough influence to make sure none of the assassins or mob bosses ever dare get into a fight while on the premises. In the third movie, Winston plots with John to completely upend the balance of power in the assassin world by taking out the high table, and the hotel becomes the setting for an epic third act shootout that ends with John faking his death and Winston being ruined by the educator. It remains to be seen whether the Continental will continue to play an important role moving forward, perhaps by becoming a fortress for Winston, John, and their allies in the upcoming war against the members of the High Table. Regular people are largely indifferent. The John Wick franchise is often praised for being much more gritty and realistic than something like the MCU or the Fast and Furious series. But the truth is the world of John Wick is every bit as over the top as other major action franchises and filled with events and people behaving in a petty, unrealistic manner. Case in point, the regular people who surrounded John Wick who are in no way connected to the criminal underworld. Like the cop who comes to John Wick's house in the first night, sees corpses in the living room, and goes away without making any further investigations, or the crowd of people in the second movie milling around John Wick and Cassian, acting completely oblivious to the fact that the two assassins are shooting at each other in plain sight. In the third movie, John Wick engages in a long street chase to a horse without exciting two different from bystanders. No ordinary civilians seem bothered by the whirlwind of violence that follows John wherever he goes. It's like every non-criminal character in the world of John Wick as an NPC player in a video game who only comes alive where the main character has to interact with them in some capacity during their quest. Many broke promises. John Wick and the rest of the criminal underworld operate by a seemingly strict code of the rules. According to these rules, killing each other is the line of business is perfectly acceptable, but breaking a promise is the most despicate sort of behavior and the reason John is forced to go on so many rants.